Entrepreneurs know all about business challenges, but few realize that those challenges could also be leading to deep personal growth. Today, we're discussing the intersection of entrepreneurship and self transcendence with Raeanne Lacatena.
Are you an entrepreneur, small business owner, or consultant looking to boost your authority, influence, and impact? The Author Switch podcast with best-selling, award-winning author Carma Spence is your answer. Tune in for actionable advice, powerful strategies, and engaging interviews to turn on your author switch and take your business to the next dimension.
The Author Switch.
Hello, and welcome to the Author Switch podcast. I'm your host, Carma Spence, and I help executive coaches, business leaders, and consultants write, publish, and market client attracting books so that they can grow their businesses. Today, we're going to be talking about the intersection of entrepreneurship and self transcendence with Raeanne Lacatena. She is a certified professional coach who's all about helping professionals and entrepreneurs step into their best lives and live more fulfilling lives. She combines her expertise as a Reiki master, licensed registered mental health counselor, and emotional freedom technique practitioner with her natural empathy and strong communication skills to make it happen. With a solid background in business management and strategic planning, Raeanne has a gift for helping clients break through obstacles and find success in areas like relationships, finances, communication, health, and wellness. Welcome to the podcast, Raeanne.
Thank you for having me.
So, just to give everyone a little bit of background, what inspired you to focus on both entrepreneurship and personal growth in your coaching practice?
Well, as you so beautifully shared in my introduction today, I did start my career in the mental health world. And so I've always known that I was meant to be a helper of human beings since I was a very little girl and pursued a career in mental health first. And as time marched on, I really continued to use a lot of the things that I learned in my advanced generalist practice and programming training, which has a mouthful, but it ended up being a training both in how to build business around nonprofit mental health as well as how to clinically provide counseling for folks. And so I entered into this blend of the masculine and feminine in business, as I often call it, very early in my career. I just didn't really know what was happening in the moment. And I happen to have that just embedded in my DNA. I tend to be more focused on the small steps forward, the momentum, the movement in business, the strategy, and learning how to integrate the feminine in business, such as, adventure, play, compassion, empathy. And when we bring those two worlds together, I see some magical things happen for the entrepreneurs that I serve. And so it's been a little bit of a personal journey myself, as well as a
Mhm.
professional journey that brought me to this space.
Wow. And you're so fortunate because so many people get into the coaching space without any business acumen whatsoever. And
Mm.
so they struggle.
Mhm.
Now, that leads us to the whole topic of today is business struggles and personal growth. How do
Mhm.
you see those being a good fit for each other?
I see them as the same thing, frankly. The way that I teach and really live, I see it as one holistic experience that we are a human being having lots of experiences in lots of different ways, but we're just one human. And so I don't separate or compartmentalize the human relationship experiences. For example, if we're having health issues, why wouldn't it affect our business? If we're a
Right.
new parent, why wouldn't it affect our business? And so instead of trying to separate out personal and professional, I help people to integrate all of who they are into all that they do, so that their struggles that they're experiencing in their life can actually help them to understand the way that they're affected in their business as well.
Oh, that's so true. I mean, I've found often that these two things that seem like they're completely not related are so interrelated on the underneath.
Yeah, without a shadow of a doubt. Yes. That we can see that in a positive and a negative way. I tend to talk about it in spiraling up or spiraling down. And I
Mhm.
tend to talk about it in three different time zones: the past, the present, and the future time zone. We can have things that happen to us in the past tense that will inform our present tense and our future tense as well. And so if we don't look at what happened to us before we came into business, and we don't look at those, for example, those traumas or those experiences that have been challenging for us, or maybe those internal patterns that we have in between our ears that happen all of the time. I'm not good enough. I don't know enough. I don't belong. Those tend to show up in our business experience, quite obviously. And so we can use the past to help us understand the way that we're behaving in our present experience of our business. And if we don't, it will affect our future. And same thing, we can spiral back to those traumas, those limiting beliefs, those experiences that we've had from our past. We can see them as lessons, invite them into our life and really move through them, or we can get stuck in them and spiral down to them and do the same thing over and over again and expect a different result. And so I really help people to just really accept life and business as a reality that is one thing. And instead of trying to move into separate parts, really, really bring them together.
Do you have any examples of how this might work or look like?
Oh, yeah. Tons and tons of them. I mean, a very simple example is, the one of the things that I see with a lot of entrepreneurs and just frankly humans these days is the phone addiction, right? That we have the
Mhm.
addiction to the technology. And if we see the way that we're engaging with our technology in our business as, for example, if we scroll on Instagram during the business day and somehow we don't understand how we don't have enough time to get things done. But then
Yeah.
also that same scrolling that's happening on Instagram, is that affecting your parenting? Is that affecting your relationship? And so that's a very simple, concrete example that when we allow ourselves to get into these patterned ways of engaging in life and business, it
Yeah.
affects across the board our time, our energy. It actually affects our neurochemistry and our biology as well, because there's a lot of neurochemicals that are fired from the instant gratification of Instagram. And so we have difficulty sometimes with procrastination, avoidance, ignoring as a result of not managing the way that we're engaging with technology, quite simply. And
Yeah.
I can give other examples as well, but that's a simple example that we might be able to begin with.
Yeah. Well, it just reminded me of this video I saw on Instagram where it was a father showing 2 examples. One where the daughter was trying to get the father's attention, and he was busy looking at his phone, and so she just walked away. And the other one was where he put his phone down and engaged with his daughter. And
Yeah.
the difference in how the daughter showed up, lit up was
Yeah.
it was only like a 30-second reel, but it was like, "Whoa."
Right. It's really powerful. Yeah.
It's
And,
very
and
powerful.
imagine, I've seen this. I can't believe that this is real, but imagine if I had picked up my phone right now on
Yeah,
our podcast together, how disrespectful that would be if I
absolutely.
did that. But I see that. I see business owners will pull out their phone in the middle of a client interaction and
Wow.
tend to whatever is dinging on their notifications instead of the human being that's right in front of them. And so
Yeah,
that's what I mean when I say who you are anywhere is who you are everywhere. And those
yeah,
clues that we have that we're seeing in our business are affecting our personal life and vice versa.
absolutely, absolutely. I know for me, 'cause my challenge one of my many unique challenges is ADHD, so squirrel, and I
Mm.
happen to live in an environment where there are literal squirrels outside the window at times, so, like, it's like I'm talking to someone else and squirrel, oops, sorry about
Yeah.
that. And
Yeah.
it's literally a squirrel. So, I totally understand, but I would not do that on a podcast or a client
Yeah.
although
You'd be
you see
surprised.
people doing it on dates.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure. And, thank you for sharing with me that about ADHD. Of course, that's going to affect both your business and your personal life. And so, really, it comes down to being respectful of reality, right? That if we know
Mhm.
we have an ADHD brain, then we want to use that brain to our advantage instead of
Right.
work against it. It's like going with the grain instead of against the grain. And of course, marrying those two worlds together.
Exactly, exactly. So I'm gonna take a quick break, and when we get back, I'd like to talk a little bit about how what we've been talking about is in your book.
Oh, okay. Sounds like a plan.
In a world where the pen is mightier than the sword, one entrepreneur embarks on the ultimate quest to conquer the blank page and unleash a book that will change the game forever. Armed with Carma Spence's masterful strategies, our hero faces down deadlines, battles self-doubt, and navigates the treacherous waters of publishing, all in a race against time to bring their message to their ideal clients. The journey of 1,000 pages begins with a single word. Are you ready for your adventure? You can make it to the finish line. The saga begins now on Amazon.
Hello, and welcome back to the Author Switch podcast. I am your host, Carma Spence, and I help executive coaches, business leaders, and consultants write, publish, and market client-attracting books that grow their businesses. And today we're talking with Raeanne Lacatena about transformation and business struggles. Now, in the first half of the podcast, we talked a little bit about her philosophy and some examples of what that looks like. But she has just come out with a new book that also discusses this topic. And that's what we're going to start off with now. So, Raeanne, tell me a little bit about your book.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, very much reflective in the beginning part of our conversation. My new book is called The Integrated Entrepreneur: Actualize Your Potential and Fulfill Your Purpose. And so you really captured in this podcast episode today the essence of what my book is about, bringing together the internal work that is necessary in order for you to enjoy the external results in your life. That's everything that I talk about. I share personal examples, but also client examples to illustrate some principles and philosophies that allow you, and as well as some concrete action steps that allow you to do this work, which is to move from that struggle place in life and business into transcendence, which that word is a mouthful. And sometimes it can be difficult to access what that really means. But as we're climbing into our purpose, when we're really working towards being the best expression of who we choose to be in our life, something magical happens when we fulfill our purpose. We remove the need to do so for ourself. We transcend ourself in service to a higher mission, in service to other people. And that's really what transcendence is about. Your mission becomes so big, it's so important and so urgent that we put our own personal needs aside in order to serve that greater mission. And that doesn't mean don't take care of ourselves. It's actually quite the opposite, that we're so protective of taking care of our bodies, our minds, our spirits, our businesses in the way that we can, and the best steward that we can of our business and life, because we know that we have something really important to do. And so that transformation, that transcendence happens when we move through these different philosophies and principles in order to be the greatest expression of who we choose for other people.
Right. Now, at some point, there may be people listening to this that are going to say, I got this. I don't need this book. What are some signs that someone actually does need to go through the work in your book?
I tend to, as we began to talk about in the beginning of the book, the masculine and feminine blend. And this can look like a little bit of a spectrum if someone might need to access this work. On the distorted masculine side, so if you're leaning in the distorted masculine side of life and business, what that ends up looking like is competition to the point of aggression. If you think to yourself, I've already arrived and I don't need other people, that's actually a distorted masculine presentation. And so if you think like, I got this, I know everything, I have everything, that's usually a sign that you're in your distorted masculine ego, because we all need community connection with other people. We all have areas and room to grow. And so that self-reflection and self-discovery is something that's important at every phase of development. Instead, to have a beginner's mind and to really believe that there's other people that you might be able to learn from, other new ways of looking at maybe even something you've heard before, and that maybe this one particular way that this one particular principle is described is the thing that transforms your life. I would just urge someone who is thinking those things to really evaluate whether or not they truly believe that they know everything. I frankly don't want to know everything, right, Karma? That
Right.
seems like too much of a responsibility. And so that's a little bit of the distorted masculine side of things. The distorted feminine side of things tends to be a little bit more in the martyr or victim mode. So I don't know enough. I don't have enough. I'm not good enough. Why me? Why does the world against me? That's the kind of energy that the distorted feminine comes into play. And If you're feeling some of those things, very normal human experiences, but that might be another sign that you want to pick up this book, because those limiting beliefs and limiting ways of engaging in life are not going to allow you to step into that self-transcendent place. The other thing I'll say is that transcendence is not a destination.
Right.
Fulfilling your purpose doesn't have a period at the end of it. It doesn't even have an exclamation a point at the end of it. It's more of a semicolon, right? Like maybe you've reached a part of the journey, you've reached a stop on the destination, but there is so much more to come. And I choose instead to think that we're always evolving, we're always growing and always
Mm,
shifting. And that is what is found in the pages of the Integrated Entrepreneur.
right. It seems to me that if you're in the exaggerated feminine, you might be one of those course whores because you can't stop learning. And I'll call myself out. I have way more courses than I have time to actually go through. We've talked about the exaggerated masculine and exaggerated feminine. What are some tips on how you might start integrating something that would make someone go, "Oh, I like this tip. I want more. I want to get your book."
Well, one thing that might be fun is I actually made a quiz, like an old teen magazine quiz
Oh, fun.
to help people assess where they are on the spectrum. Because really, what we're looking to do is move away from the external exaggerations, as you called it, distortions of the masculine and feminine, into healthy presentations of the masculine and feminine, and better yet, in a harmonized or balanced state in between the two. And I created a quiz that allows you to assess where you are, because one of the most important tips that you can offer yourself in anything, frankly, is self-awareness. You have to be willing to go inward to experience the outer results that you want in your life, whether that's in business and parenting and relationships, life in general. That's really the whole point here. And so self-awareness is always the place to start. You cannot change what you do not know about yourself. And so learning about where you are on this spectrum and some different ways that you can move through from one end of the spectrum to the other is the first step. Where am I? Then you can figure out how to go into those other places. If you're in a more distorted masculine place, then you might want to consider to work on building relationships as a primary aspect. You know, a lot of the masculine business owners that are out there, and this is not man versus woman, this is a masculine energy. I have a
Mhm,
lot of women that I work with actually that are predominantly masculine in their approach to business. And so you might want to consider focusing on the people side of business,
mhm,
communication skills, engaging with your team differently, managing your own tone and your own expression so that you can connect. So, really focusing on connection and community building. If you notice that the way that I'm describing the distorted masculine might be a little bit where you're landing, then you want to lean into the people side of things. And if you're on the distorted feminine side of things, then you really want to focus on healing your internal world so that you can engage with people, but also processes different. Like you called it a course whore. You don't have enough time to get everything that you want to get done. Well,
right.
then you need to practice discernment, which is actually a more masculine trait. To be able to say no, boundary setting is important for the distorted feminine to heal, because you can't say yes to everything. And if you
Right.
try to say yes to everything, what you end up doing is saying no to really important things in your life. And so
Yeah.
boundary setting is important, time management is important, and that's masculine leaning. And so it's really coming back to the middle in these two places. And the quiz, which you can find at raeannelacatena.com/energy quiz, that's a great place to start to see where you are. And then even within the quiz, it gives you some other nice concrete ways that you can practice moving from one to the other. And obviously in the book, in the pages of the book, I go deeply into this as well.
That sounds fantastic. Where
Thank
can
you.
someone get your book?
It's actually on Amazon now. I just launched it 2 weeks ago, and I'm proud to report that it was number one new release in 3 categories and a bestseller in two as well, number one bestseller in 2 categories as well. And so it's right on Amazon, The Integrated Entrepreneur, or you can look at it at my website at raeannelacatena.com.
Perfect. And I will put all those links in the show notes. Is there anything that we haven't talked about yet that you are just burning to share with my audience?
Well, I really do invite people into this idea of transcendence. Sometimes it can feel like a far fetch when you're in a hard place in your life, when you're struggling with something internally or personally. For someone to say words even like purpose or fulfill or transcendence can feel like, yeah, that'd be nice, but that's for another day. This is really just hard right now. That you can climb and you can leap if you choose to, that it requires commitment and dedication. However, it doesn't have to be hard work. Sometimes
Mhm.
when we think about climbing or using principles or changing or shifting or transforming, it can feel like a heavy lift. But what I've often seen is that avoiding doing that work is actually harder. And that you're actually in the hard part now, if that's how you're feeling. If you're feeling heavy and challenged and things are too difficult to move through, that's the hard part. It can
Yeah.
actually be easeful on the other side of transformative work. It can actually be the easy side of the coin where you are able to do things with more flow, more grace, more ease. And so I don't want people to think that, just because there's an entire book out there on how to live in a holistic, integrated way, that this is really difficult, that it actually can be the next easiest phase in your life and business.
And it seems to me that I mean, you're using words like transcendence and that can sound very woo,
Yeah.
but it sounds like what you're talking about is really not woo at all. It's very concrete and, grounded.
It can be both, right? Just like anything else is what I would say, that I have both woo sides of my transcendence personally. The point is that it's a really personal preference. And if
Mm,
we can find that middle point between woo, which leans towards feminine, and masculine, which leans towards concrete, that's where the magic happens. For me, yeah, I do want to change the world. I do want to help as many people as possible. And I want to do so because I believe that the planet is suffering. That's a little woo, if you will, right? But there's
yeah.
also a masculine part of it. I'm a business strategist, and I know that entrepreneurs are the difference makers, the change makers, the rule breakers. And so I know that that market is most open to changing the world with me. And so we can find that center point between concrete and woo.
Right, and you're an example of how you can use a book to help you move toward that mission.
Yeah.
And I think I mean, that's my personal mission is to
Yeah.
help more people like you become authors and get their message out there, out into the world. So
Yeah. And that's transformative in and of itself as well.
it can be. It can be. Thank you so much for joining me today on the Author Switch.
Thank you for having me.
This is the end of this episode. I hope you will join me next week when I'll be talking about something completely different. This is Carma Spence saying ciao for now. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Author Switch podcast. If you enjoyed today's show and want to support its mission, here's how to help. First, give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Your engagement helps my channel grow and reach more aspiring and established authors. Your ratings and reviews are invaluable. They help me reach more listeners and continue delivering top-notch content. To catch up on past episodes, including those no longer available on podcast platforms, visit authorswitch.com/episodes. There, you can choose to watch or listen to your favorite episodes at your convenience. If you'd like to show additional support, consider dropping a tip in the tip jar at buymeacoffee.com/Carma Spence. Your contributions help keep the podcast running and are greatly appreciated. Thank you for being a part of the Author Switch community. Until next time, keep writing.